Hey guys, I want to share with you a little bit about my upgrade on my battery bank. It's a project I've been working on ever since I bought my first 6 LifePower 4 batteries. And then I'd catch a sale going on at Signature Solar, and I bought 3 more batteries, and then later I bought 6 more. But I've been wanting to get these batteries to BMS communicate with my SolArk. And the LifePower 4s just wouldn't do it. And actually, I never could get the BMS to properly work with the LifePower 4 and the GrowWatt SPF 5000. I could get them to talk, but it just didn't work. It was actually, I had to take it off and put it on user. But that's basically what I had to do with the SolArk, is to take this and treat it as just a lithium battery, not a lithium battery, a lead acid battery, as far as the SolArk was concerned. And inside the SolArk, I had to program the amp hours, charge the bank all the way up, put the amp hours in, set all the voltage parameters that Signature Solar provided me for the LifePower 4 batteries. And that worked pretty good, except it would lose track of the actual state of charge of this bank. I was also using Solar Assistant to monitor the battery bank, and it would actually monitor each individual battery. And sometimes it would be a 25 or 30% state of charge difference between the Solar Assistant and the SolArk. Now, I did not contact SolArk about that. I had talked to him briefly on the tail end discussion of another phone call, and they just told me, hey, if you're having trouble, give us a call, we'll work it out. But I didn't do that. But I saw videos that Signature Solar had put out about their V2 battery, which is this top battery right up here, that the V2 battery would BMS communicate with the SolArk, and it would also downward communicate with the LifePower 4. So my intent with this particular upgrade project was to add the V2 battery, get it communicating with the SolArk, and then have it communicate with these LifePower 4 batteries so I could get an accurate state of charge and battery capacity on my SolArk. Because what was happening was I was draining my bank down too low. It was getting near zero with my SolArks, and I'd have to go in and manipulate switching times and all that. It was just kind of a pain. It's not what I was wanting, how I was wanting it to work. So anyway, what I'm going to share with you is some videos of how I installed this battery, and some more comments about the battery bank in general. And then later, I'm going to share with you some videos on how I've got these LifePower 4s to mostly communicate with the V2. And then later, I'm going to share with you a video of why the LLV2 battery is not working for my particular purposes. Now, I want to say that Signature Solar's tech support has been fantastic. I dealt with a guy there named Ty. Very, very helpful. And he's helped me go through the installation process, and he's helped me determine a couple of issues that I'll explain to you in another video, why that V2 is not going to work for my intended purposes. It is talking to the LifePower 4 mostly, okay? But watch out for that video, because I think it's important. If you have a large LifePower 4 battery bank, using the V2 to communicate with is probably not going to give you the results that you are wanting. If you have a small LifePower 4 bank, it's going to work just fine. But a large bank like this, it's there's a couple issues there that's causing it not to work the way I want. Watch out for that video, and I'll share it with you. But I want to give a call out to the tech support at Signature Solar. I know we've all heard the complaints, and I personally have experienced some disappointment there. But my dealings here have been spot on. I give them an A+ for helping me with this. All right. When I go to that third video and explain why this V2 not working for my project, I'm going to also tell you what I'm going to do to make this work again, like I want it to. All right, so I'm going to stop this right here. I'm going to share with you. I'm going to just splice onto this video, the videos I shot last week where we put this in, and I did a little discussion on some of the things I was doing, and then I'll do another set where I upgraded the firmware on the batteries and got them communicating, and then I'll do a third one explaining why this is not working for me and what I'm going to do to try to accomplish what I want. All right, let's get busy. Hey guys, this is Jeff again. Today's the day I'm going to modify this battery bank. Currently I have 15 LifePower 4 batteries split between these 3 racks. And these have worked well. I've got a couple little issues I'm going to have to talk to tech support Signature Solar about with 3 of the batteries, but they don't BMS communicate with my SolArks. So it's trying to emulate the capacity. It's trying to calculate the capacity. And I'm not so sure it's doing that good a job, because I also have it communicating with my solar assistant. And you gotta see here, turn this, that they don't agree with each other. All right, this solar assistant is showing, I'm sorry I can't get this to cooperate any better. That's gonna make me log in. Anyway, there's about a 20% difference in state of charge showing on my SolArks. This one's at 42%, and from the solar system it says 25%. I do have 3 batteries that are in warning condition because they won't fully charge. But at any rate, I'm going to be putting in a LL2, EG4 LL2 version 2 battery that is supposed to communicate with the SolArk and then downstream communicate with these LifePower 4 batteries. So I'm hoping that'll give me a little bit better information and let me track the state of charge with the SolArks better than what they're doing right now. Now I understand that EG4 has come out with a communication device for about $100 that you can connect to your LifePower 4s, and then they will communicate with the SolArks. But I wasn't aware of that when I bought this V2 battery. But anyway, we're going to put this in and see how it goes. All right, this is the EG4 LL version 2 battery. And this is how it comes shipped to you in a box like this. I did open the open the cover. Cable's taped on the side. I guess that's the communication cable for your laptop. I'm glad they included it there. But it came on a pallet, so it was protected. But we're fixing to dig into this thing. Comes with a manual. Pretty thick padding. Communication cable from battery to battery. Not much doubt where that's made, is it? And the battery jumpers. Seems to be packed pretty good. There's good foam around it. It's a nice plastic bag. So, fixing to get Justin to help me pull it out of this box. Because this thing is really heavy, guys. If you're not fooled with these batteries, this is not a one-person job unless you're a lot different than me. But it probably weighs 100 pounds or close to it. Anyway, let's get back to work. All right, we got the new battery in place. And just like Signature Solar was showing in their video on YouTube, we did find it necessary to remove the handles, because with the handle on here like that is just sitting right there at the bus. So we had to take the handles off. Also, the handles are in the slot where we have to mount this to the frame. Now, there's a ground lug on this particular battery, but none of the other LifePower 4 batteries have a ground lug. So it's really important that you get these screws mounted into the frame, into the rack, because that's your ground connection to ground the can on this LifePower 4. When I first got these batteries, the LifePower 4s, the manual showed a ground lug on here. I quizzed EG4 tech support, and they said they didn't include that lug anymore, that the grounding was taken care of through the rack. And I ohmed it all out, and it is. So I have the rack grounded. Actually, it's grounded back up in there. You can't see it because the original racks did not have a provision for a ground. So we made one, and then I ohmed it to the frame, to the battery, after we clamped it up to the slots with these screws. Even though a lot of them didn't line up, but we did manage to get at least 2 screws in every battery. So I didn't need them to physically restrain them so much as I wanted them for the ground. So this one here, like I said, we had to remove the handle. It looks like these are going to line up pretty good, and then we're going to do some connections. Okay, here's something that we're encountering. It's not a biggie, just gonna pull the battery back out, but the handle hose were right here, and that was lining up pretty good with our rack nuts that we had in there, but the bolt for the rack nuts are too big. So we're going to pull this out. I guess we could drill this hole out for the handle to fit this, but we're going to pull it back out and move the nuts into a different location, probably here and here, and put it back in. Okay, we've got the new LLV2 battery in place, and it is a bit different. We ended up having to pull it back out, put the handles back on, pull it back out to put some more nuts in on the rack to get it mounted. This cable went to my LifePower 4 #1 battery. It's too short to reach over here, so I've got to get a longer cable. And I'm going to have to read the manual on this. Right now I got my Solar Assistant tied into the RS485, and I think the CAN is what's going to go back to the SolArk, but I've got to read it, study it. But we're fixing to also give me one of those out there. Connect up the battery post. I want to show you something here. Give me the red one. All right, this is the older rack, and you see that lug. 100% surface area of this lug is on this bus bar, and that's really what you want for an electrical connection. So this design, in my mind, is far superior to that rib nut design that took out half the bus bar to put in a little rib nut of this for a boat this size. But any rate, we got to get these hooked up and get them torqued, and then start working on communications. All right, this is something that I tried to demonstrate the other day when I had these bus bars on, but I'm going to do it now. I've got everything off. See that lug? How it's barely making contact with the copper because this rib nut is so large. Probably can't tell. This battery was on the other bus bar, which is a good bus bar. In my opinion, this is an inferior system, but it doesn't have the marks on it that this other wire did that I showed you the other day. But what I'm going to do, I've got a 5/16 inch #2 lug. That's going to give me a little bit more surface area. I mean, I'm stacking copper connections, which is not the best thing, but it's going to give me more contact surface with this copper bar. If I had a 1/4 inch, that would be better, but I don't, so I'm going to use this. And this is going to be a better connection. I'm actually going to end up changing all these down here to this configuration because I'm getting a better connection with this #6 copper lug onto this #2 lug, and the #2 lug is getting a good connection surface area on the copper bar. Steel bolts and rib nuts are good for mechanical connections, but you don't want to depend on them for an electrical connection. Now, we're mechanically holding these lugs to the bus bar, so that is important, but you don't want to depend upon that steel nut, can't get the right word out, to conduct electricity, because steel, even though it's conductive, it's not a good conductor. Now, I will come back and I will do an IR scan of this entire bank when I get a heavy load on it. But one thing you can't do with an IR camera, at least the ones that I'm familiar with that cost up to $25,000, is get a good temperature reading off this lug, because shiny metal reflects heat from all around it. And when I do the thermal scan, I'll show you what I'm talking about. So to take a temperature reading off this, I would have to paint it, say a black, some type of paint, or put some tape on it real good to where I could get a temperature off that tape. But I'm not going to have to do that because I'm going to get the temperature reading off this right here. And what this temperature is probably going to be what the temperature of this lug is. Now, if you see a problem, because I do this stuff often, if you see a heat temperature here, it could either mean you got a bad crimp or you got a bad connection. So then you would investigate your crimp and you'd investigate your connection. But this, those rivet nuts are that's just not good for this application. All right, let us get busy. Now, one more thing. We are going to torque this down to the specification, because that is important. A good torque, a proper torque is very important. You don't want it under torqued. You don't want it over torqued, because an over torqued connection can create just as much heat problem as an under torqued connection. And that's even more important when you go over to the other bars, the copper bars, because the copper thread is softer than the steel. So if you over torque it, you're liable to strip it out. But anyway, let us get busy. All right, as I mentioned before, the older LifePower 4 batteries did not have a ground lug, and we were having to bond the frame of the rack through these rack screws. And we do have the rack frame bonded up in there, up under here. But I wanted to show you that this does have continuity. This is a rack screw here, and this is the ground lug there. So we are connected through the frame to the battery steel and to the ground. And also over here to our metal cabinet, or metal trough. You always want your ground tying all your metal components together if you can. That way, if one becomes energized and another one's not, if you touch two different, you don't get a potential difference. It's all at the same potential and you don't get shocked. Plus, it helps operate overcurrent protection devices, though it won't operate this breaker unless you get both cables shorted. But so I think we're good. I'm not gonna run a separate ground wire here, because to get to it, I've got to take my top off and get over to the ground lug. But this is making a good connection. All right. Okay, guys. We have the LLV2 battery installed in the number 1 slot of my first rack. And I took this battery out, the older battery, the LifePower 4 that was here, and moved it over here. And I showed you how we did that, how we did the grounding and bonding on it, how we connected our lugs up, and how we torqued them. You want to torque them to specification, and how I modified this bus because of these rib nuts. So I'm going to call this install complete as far as the physical mechanical part of the install is concerned. And I'm going to share with you in a future video to come out in the next day or so how we got these LifePower 4s communicating with the V2, and how I got the V2 to communicate with the SolArk. All right, this is the end of this.